Hello, cartoon boat fans. So earlier this year, I put together this Meng model kit of the deformed Titanic. At the time, it was missing this piece that holds this propeller on, but I pleaded with the customer service of Meng, and they were nice enough to ship out that piece to me. They do have like a special process if you're missing a part. You got to like keep the box and the runner and like some sort of ID number or something like that. But they helped me out, so I really appreciate the company, and I really like the content that they make. So anyways, there's a build on that. This turned out pretty well. I also bought the aftermarket wooden deck, and that was actually kind of painful to put on because the decking was so thin and fragile. But that's not the fault of Meng. It was an aftermarket company making that. Okay, well, so that brings up the subject of today. What kind of moron would buy two cartoon Titanics? I retract that last statement, the question there. Alright, so we have this brand called Suyata, and this will be my first. It seems like this brand makes some interesting stuff, like they make robotic insects, some crazy space battleships with the legs and stuff, or... Anyways, I thought I'd play it safe and just go with a different form of the Titanic, because this one has an iceberg seat that comes along with it. Snap fit together, no glue necessary maybe. You have no clue, maybe the colored pieces. This is a nice rendering. It says designed by JUHS. I don't know how you would pronounce that. Okay, so apparently, oh, I see. The actual seals or whatever have names. Although, isn't Jack and Leo the same person? And who the heck is Big Lou or Big Lee? Is that the bad person in the Billy Zane character? I don't know. Alright, cartoon model ship. 6 seals include content and payment not included. 14 and up. Iceberg scene. Metal parts not included. I wonder if there's optional metal pieces. Caution. Boy, that's a weird font to put on a box. I'm not gonna... Well, you can try to read that. Oh, by the way, this is their first one, I guess. It's SL001. I don't know what the L would mean, or the S even. Suyata... What's L? It's not cartoon. It's not deformed. Oh, well, here are the dimensions. 90 by 150 by 48. It's interesting. It looks like they just taped that on to... I don't know, it's weird. And these guys are out of Hong Kong. Interesting. Not mainly in China, or as a lot of people like to say, West Taiwan. Okay. Oh, this is a lot bigger than that Meng one, it seems. I'm a small model collector. I'd really like to have all my models be small, but I think this might be aimed for children, so the bigger it is, you know, for clumsy hands and stuff like that. So maybe this is better for me. That's a nicely molded piece of plastic, like the actual color. There's no weird waviness in those pieces, but the real one is the hull. Let's take a look at this and see if it's going to need to be repainted. Very often you get these weird molding flow lines, like this, right? Or here, but that's not visible, so I'm not concerned there. You definitely have some of it here. The issue is, they actually went and masked this off and painted this top part white. So unless you masked off that, and then you paint the bottom part black. But you know, I think I'm probably just going to leave it alone and just paint the whole thing with a matte clear coat. That tends to knock down a lot of this stuff. I could always paint it after if I'm unsatisfied. So this is essentially a water line right here. So you put it on a blue surface and it looks like it's literally floating through the water. Right, and then here's the lower part of that hull. And let's see, since this is a big piece also, if it looks horrible or not. Inside doesn't look so great, but who cares? Bottom I don't care about either. It's just the sides. I think that looks better than the black. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm okay with that. This is actually quite thin. I think for a child, that's quite delicate. Maybe this isn't meant for kids after all. I could easily see myself breaking that rudder off. So here are the seals. And I don't know if I don't think I'm gonna paint these things. Maybe I'll try to put some eyeballs on them, but it's nice. So literally a whole bunch of different sizes. The icebergs themselves, yeah, I don't think I'm going to need to paint those. If you want them to look really nice, you do some airbrushing, some light blue, just to make them look like giant ice cubes. We'll have to see what happens. So let's see what else is in this box. Pretty rigid box there. This brown, yeah, seems alright. This red, it's actually different. This is a maroon. So that's interesting. It doesn't match at all. Or should it? It should match, right? Because these are the side propellers. So that's kind of actually bad that they don't match. Alright. This is a nice orange. We got some nice yellow. Yeah, that deck looks pretty nice. Really nice thick panel gaps, and then deep as well. So if like a kid was to paint this with a brush, they could lay on the paint pretty thick and still probably see some of the wooden planking. Oh, and then look at these windows. They're super tiny. So passing air, that's actually quite detailed. Very impressive. And actually, I get an impression that this is better than the Meng model kit as far as the details go. It's just that it's a much longer ship. It's not as wide though. And then these portholes are all open, whereas the Meng one was not. But we'll compare those two at the end of this video. Let's take a look at this and see if this is straightforward. I don't even see a reason to bag an instruction manual. It's not like this is something most people keep. Gundams very often don't do it, so I don't see a need for this. This structure needs to be excised. I'm going to assume trimmed off. The exorcism of the Suyata model. Oh, we have a water slide decal. It's not a sticker. It's a water slide. Maybe there's a base plate. Oh, yeah, that's what this is, so that's cool. Oh, I gotta back out. Nice, pretty nice catalog or assembly instruction manual here. That's a really thick piece of paper. Don't swallow any items. Okay, so you can pause and read that if you want. I'm pretty sure I won't swallow anything. But there actually is cement listed here, even though I got the impression it said you don't need it. Definitely side nippers, not pliers, side nippers, maybe a hobby knife, maybe tweezers. Decal application. They're the runner parts you should get in this box. Okay, so it looks pretty straightforward. You just got to look at the part numbers, and it's got nice directional arrows which way they should be going. And then it's got a big step 6 superimposed behind it. Step 9. There's only 11, 12, 13, 14 pages of steps, so I do think a kid could handle this. And then yes, if you want to keep the thing non-waterline, you know, you can put the red bottom on and put it on the stand, or whip out the icebergs and have it waterline. Okay, look at that. So you got one with the port scene. That would have been a much smarter purchase. That sounds, well, that looks intriguing. I do like the Red Baron. I like biplanes, not as much as jet planes, but still pretty neat aviation history. So as usual, I'm going to fast forward this video, and you can slow it down or speed it up, or else I'll just see at the end and talk about any problems and what I did. Okay, well, here we are, and it's finished. It was a really easy build. Only a couple issues which I'll talk about later, but let's get the ship comparisons out of the way because I'm going to end with the snow diorama. So here's the Meng thing, the Meng model kit. And you can see this is just a much bigger ship. It's much taller. You know, even if I get rid of this, it's a much taller ship. It's a much longer ship. The only thing the Meng has is the width. It's wider. But it's definitely a different type of deformation. But this is far more extreme, I think, because it's just so short, right? Okay. Well, anyways, that's that. And then I have 3 Fujimi ships. Here's the I think this is the Yamato. Yeah, the flagship of the Japanese Imperial Navy back in World War II. And then here's the biggest aircraft carrier I have from the Fujimi Chibimaru line, the Kaga. And so that's getting a little close as far as the height goes. And then here's a destroyer called the Akizuki. So it's still quite a massive ship, you know, the Titanic. So, I feel like this is a better fit for these Fujimi ones. So, yeah, Suyata, you kind of just picked your own scale and went with it, but unless you're going to make a whole bunch of other cartoon ships, it's just like a freestanding model. You know, it's not going to pose well with much else. Alright, so the stand is kind of... I'm never going to use this thing. I thought about putting the decal because over here it says Suyata, but all the letters were individual, so you can't put the Suyata decal on the bottom. So I'm just going to remember. I don't have a problem remembering that's the Titanic. I might have a problem remembering what brand it is. So I guess it's an alright stand and all, but it's just not for me. Alright, now, so let's talk about the build. This is a very well engineered kit. All the press fittings, they're all just tight enough. None were super loose, really. Some were, the little bits like this, I did glue because if for some reason it did fall out, I would never find it again. But like these stacks, I glued some, but you really don't have to. Unless you feel like if this fell off a bookshelf, then it might pop loose. But a lot of the other stuff I didn't bother gluing. The only issue that really I think you're going to really want to glue is some of the deck parts. Like the back of the deck was warping upwards, and this white part here is a separate piece, and I had to hold it down here on both sides because there was a gap right here between the white and the black. And then unfortunately this white piece, only these rectangular these square holes go through. So I added black paint wash. If you don't, it's going to literally be the color of the deck here. But all these little portholes on this top row are so shallow that it's almost impossible to get a paint wash in there without the paint wash overflowing. And then when you try to erase it, you take a lot of the paint out of the hole because they're just so shallow. I wish all these holes went all the way through, just like these square holes, or you can see all these holes down here. They're literally hollow, so they always look dark. So that's the one design thing that I think could have been better, you know. These things are so shallow, these portholes. It's really hard to make them black. Another area where there was a little bit of warpage was right at this joint here on both sides. So I added some glue, and my glue is so thin I got a bunch of extra glue, but that's definitely a tight joint right there and there now, so that's good. All these little cranes, I think they are for the lifeboats. They can pivot. I didn't bother gluing them because it's a nice tight fit. I don't think those would fall out even if the thing fell over. Another design problem is the lifeboats. The way they molded them, the plastic flowed in through the top surface. So here's the plastic, the runner, or the sprue, or no, the gate. But it's really hard to sand those down because you have these really tiny details here. So ideally, I really wish they had the runners somewhere else, maybe on the back side or something, so you could sand those easier. But it's almost impossible to sand these smooth because you're gonna run the risk of taking all these tiny things off with it. These two are the only ones you can sand down because they don't have the extra details there. I added some black paint wash into those windows. I imagine, that's a big banquet hall. And I'm not sure if these are vents from the engine room or if they're skylights, but I just painted them black. I didn't bother with this row because the black would seep upwards up that wall. But back to the good engineering. So this yellow deck, you push in these brown pieces from the bottom side, and same with these black posts where the lines to moor it to a dock would go. So those are all coming up from the underside. So there's a perfect separation of the brown color and the black color from the yellow deck. These actually look like they're couches, so I guess they're supposed to be like little brown couches, just sticking out on the deck. You can see these extremely fine stair details. I mean, they're finer than a toothpick. So it's quite amazing the great details they got into this mold. But at the same time, like the details of this boat, it's weak. It's kind of strange. The boats are definitely probably the weakest part. But like this tower with the little, I don't know what you'd call that, the cupola, or no, I don't know, some sort of podium where the people would sight the iceberg, and I guess that must be a light. So that is a separate piece going in there. But look how fragile this light is, right? It's in these fragile thin pieces. This little crane thing where I think Jack and Rose were standing or something. Also, I would rather have a decal of Titanic. Instead, they literally molded the word Titanic here, but the letters are so small and they're so low that you can't take a silver marker and swipe them, because you'll definitely just get the areas in between the letters. I feel if the Titanic was bigger and the letters are raised, then you could easily hit them with a silver marker or a paintbrush and not run the risk of filling in the gaps between the lettering. So the Meng had like a sticker instead, and I think that would have been better if they had a big flat rectangle and a sticker that goes in there, or a decal. Also up here, it's nice that they have these little chain details, but they're so shallow. I didn't want to paint wash them because I know the paint wash should just run all over the deck into all those gaps. And normally if this was I would want to weather this, but the Titanic never got old, right? It literally sank on its maiden voyage, so there's no such thing as a weathered Titanic that was floating above the surface of the water, so everything should look brand new. So that's why I didn't want to put a paint wash on anything except for these portholes. Okay, but it is nice that, inside through these big windows, you can see smaller windows, because there's a wall back there, and a little door window right there. Maybe you can see right there, right? Or up here, you can see these tiny, tiny windows, and those are all passing air, so it's cool that you don't have to sit there and add paint wash to them. There's literally just air, so making them look dark. There's also like a little light or a bell right here. That's interesting. The stairs, again, really small stairs, pretty nicely done. The anchors, though, the tab for the anchors doesn't go all the way through the black hull, so I added some glue because I was afraid, well, one of them was just loose after I tried pushing it in. I wish the tab was longer and went all the way through, like further, and then you could add glue on the back side to make sure this anchor doesn't fall loose. But anyways, it does look nice from the outside. These are counter-rotating propellers, the ones on the ends. I'm not sure if they're in the right order because I clipped them all off and didn't assemble it by the directions. But at least they're counter-rotating, because the middle one's a 4-blade. You can't mess that up. So maybe these are supposed to be vice versa, but I don't really care. It's a cartoon boat. They did get the detail of the forced stack not actually being an engine exhaust. I don't know what this stack was. I think it was just built for styling, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think only the first 3 actually had boilers, for the coal burners down there. So obviously from this angle you can see the light shining through here, but in most instances they just look black. So I suppose you could put a light in there for some reason. to make them look like it's at night when it sank, right? And it's all lit up. But and actually you could do that on the top as well. A couple of the top pieces I did glue from the underside because these little white things are pushed in through the underside again. But when I pushed the deck down, one of these things fell back down into this cavity. So I ended up pulling it off and gluing it. So I do have some glue residue because I use this really thin glue and it just gets everywhere, but I don't mind so much. Okay, so the last bit then is the water line. So one note is if you put this base onto this black, it's such a tight fit, I don't think you're going to get it off without stressing the plastic or gouging it to try to get a pry tool in there. So what I did is I took a jewelry file and I just ran it around the whole perimeter of all four of those until these were just tight enough to hold, but loose enough that I could easily pull it out. Because I want to show you the iceberg scene. I am probably going to just display it like this in my cabinet, but you know, you buy a diorama kit to see a diorama. The first thing, we got the icebergs themselves. I did end up painting them with a dusting of sky blue, and then I put too much blue on, so then I went back and added white primer. But it looks like you know, icebergs are literally reflecting the ocean up into them. So I think the top surfaces are the whitest, and then the blue is towards the bottom because it's catching the reflection of the water. So that's what's going on here. Just a little bit of, you know, blue, but the tops are generally white. Like this is mostly the original, but then the side again. So that's what I did. They're really nicely detailed. Obviously a little bit better with a little color contrast. So very cool. And so you have those 5 pieces. Right, if you want to have some in front, I'll move the camera here. Now I want to show you a little easy trick to paint the seals. So I took some double-sided tape and just taped them down in order of size. I was looking at pictures of an Arctic seal, and it seems like the baby ones are the white ones. Sadly, the ones that were clubbed to death. That's not a laughing matter. But anyway, so some of the older ones, they become grayer and grayer, and some of them also have splotches or like splotches of white. So what I did is, you know, I took my airbrush and I just concentrated my gray paint towards the front, and then I never moved it, so as the paint sprayed back here, less of it would actually coat the back ones. So basically it's really dark gray grading out to just white, but with a tiny bit of gray, because if it was perfectly white it would just blend in with this too easily. And then I used a Sharpie fine tip marker to do the eyes, the nose, and the little dots on them. I also scratched off some paint, which is my fingernails, before I ended up matte clear coating it, because that's just the way some seals look. So okay, so we got Papa, we'll go here, we got Mama there, and let's put Baby here as well, and then let's put, like, I don't know, Junior up here maybe. Yeah, it seems to be an extra iceberg. So unfortunately the tops of the icebergs aren't very big, so looking at this, Papa wouldn't even fit on here, or he really has a hard time fitting on that. It's just too big. Yeah, so even these smaller ones, I guess maybe if I put this one downwards like this, that works kinda. It's not fully on that surface. And then this little one will go right here, I guess. And no, that looks weird, you know, so maybe I'll just have a blank iceberg. Alright, so it's cruising through. Here's a blank one. And maybe it ends up hitting the last one here. You know, this one's quite flat, but the front definitely has more texture. Alright, so it's definitely a sad case for the Titanic. You know, so many people died. And it was just cockiness, right? Cockiness of the engineer thinking it would never sink, and then cockiness of the captain trying to set some sort of speed record or whatever, crossing the ocean. And then there's, I don't know if it's too early to joke about those people that tried to go revisit it with that submarine, and the irony of how they didn't test that properly and the ego killed him and his son and those other people. That's just ridiculous, right? Okay, well, anyways, still a pretty cool model kit, really easy to build, because you don't have to really paint it if you don't want to, because the Titanic only looked new. So that's a good thing, I guess, for lazy people like me. But it's definitely a bigger model than the Meng. So anyways, you gotta take that into consideration. But I don't think you need to buy a wooden deck, because the wood decking here, the grooves are so thick, they're quite visible. I kind of like them. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next Tooned boat video.